Welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the best version of yourself. We're so excited to be here today. It's a special day. I'm so conceited because it's my birthday.
Yes. You're now a quarter century old.
I know, I'm 25, and all of this will tie back to today's episode theme. But yeah, I'm 25. Definitely not what I expected. Like, I don't know when I know 25 is not old, but you start to feel kind of old.
Yeah, age just, time flies, first of all.
Yeah.
Like, next thing you know, you're 75. I'm just kidding.
God, I hope not.
But I mean, I just
hope, like, the next time I feel it.
I just remember when I turned 25, I'm like, man, I'm a quarter century old. And now it's like 4 or 5 years later. I'm like, I'm about to be.
I think what's what trips me up about 25 is like, so there's like a meme on TikTok about this, about like, no, but I'm like still 21. And it's like, because you just, those years after 21 is just like nothing, there's nothing like significant. Like 21, like you're old enough to drink, like you're like feel like more of an adult because of it. And then 22, 23, and 24, there's really nothing significant about those ages. But like 25, like you're halfway through your 20s.
Yeah.
So it feels weird because it didn't feel like I graduated college that long ago. But this year will mark like 3 years ago. And I'm just like, was it really that long ago? Because it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
Like some days it just it feels like it was yesterday. And I think, your 20s is challenging, I will say. And I mean, you're in your last year of your 20s.
I know.
You're going to turn 30 this year.
Yes.
So that's
oh my
crazy.
gosh. It's insane to think about that.
It's crazy. I think it feels weird for me to be like, my future husband is going to be 30 next year.
It's
and
so
I'm just
crazy.
like, what the heck? You look like that.
No, I mean, like, just, that's why, like, it's obviously your birthday today. And when this goes out, obviously it'll be the day after. But, like, every day on my birthday, I'm always thinking, like, man, like where am I at? Like, how are things? Like, even the New Year rings that bell for most of you guys.
Yeah.
Like, every New Year, it's like
but, like, your birthday, especially, I mean, it kind of sucks when your birthday's in January because you can't get that fresh start with your birthday, too. But it does feel like it is the start essentially of like another year of life. So it is kind of good reset too, to think about like, okay, what will I accomplish in like before my next birthday, and I think that this morning I was feeling very like a glum little plum because like, it's just, I think I envisioned my 20s being a little different. And I think I envisioned certain things happening before I turned 25. It's kind of like we've brought this up before too. Like there's a Friends episode where Rachel's like, she's upset because she's turning 30, she's not married, all this kind of stuff. And I have a similar feeling with being 25. And I know part of it comes from me being so hard on myself and impatient. But I don't know. When you're younger and you're picturing your life, you can't really incorporate all the things that could also go wrong. So this episode, I kind of wanted to talk about the pressures of getting older. And I think this will like relate to the both of us. Like, obviously, I just turned 25, but you'll be 30 this year, and like how that feels. And I think you have experienced similar feelings, like when you're like getting to be like almost 30, and getting to be now. I don't know if like 25 is like mid 20s. It's mid 20s, right? Like
technically, I think, and then, like, when someone
20s.
says when someone says like mid 30s, it's like in between 30 and obviously going to like 40. So mid 20s is.
I thought no, so like early 20s, mid 20s, and late 20s. Late 20s. So like, what's the?
I'm in my late 20s. Someone would like.
You're in your late 20s, but when does late start? Does it start at 27?
After 25, I would say.
But what's 26?
Late.
Really?
Yeah.
So the only mid 20s then would be 25. There's only one.
No, it's between. Oh, actually, that's a good question.
Because early 20s.
Because there's early 20s.
Yes, that's what I say.
That's the thing is because immediately what comes to my mind is like when you get like someone like we're looking for after watching a documentary, we're looking for a suspect in their mid to late. You hear that all the time. Mid to late 20s. They're this high or whatever the case is. Now I has me wondering what in the world does that mean? When they say mid to late, it's like so that means between 25 to 30?
You know
Or I
what's
don't know.
funny
That's a good
though is
question.
like this is off topic and
Sorry.
we'll get to the actual topic, but like when I think about that, like I don't think anyone would ever describe me like, for instance, if I was wanted by the police or something.
Oh my
I don't think
gosh, like-
anyone would see me and be like, yeah, she was in her mid-20s.
They'd be like, "She's like
we're
14."
looking for a child. I remember because I bring this up
true.
because there's a YouTuber I watch. Her name's Kristen Johns. I love her, and she was involved in like an accident. Like her and her husband were hit on a bicycle, and the car that hit them was going like 60, and like they flew off. It was this whole thing, and when they reported it, like a lot of people reported that it was like
A child?
a minor that got hit because like she looked so young, and it wasn't. But like that's not funny, obviously.
That's
It's not an
not,
accident,
yeah.
but like it was crazy because she said even in the hospital. Like,
Yeah,
people
oh
thought
my
that she
gosh.
was so much younger than she was. But anyway, back to the topic.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this specifically because I was definitely not having the best of birthdays and that I was just really down. And I didn't really understand why either because, like, we got up and we had a nice breakfast and, brunch. And, like, one of my favorite, I love that coffee shop. It's called Makers and
Makers
Finders.
and Finders. If you're ever in Vegas, Makers and Finders is a
Here
really
in
cool
Vegas
place.
because it does have really great, like, coffees, beers, like mimosas, but also really good food. Like it's not just like I feel like when you go to a coffee shop, it's either one or the other. They really got really good pastries or really good coffee. You never get both usually. So I was excited to do that. And then we got back and we were gonna record this originally earlier in the morning and me and Cesar tried and then I just started crying because I didn't know, I just felt like all types of ways. And also just because like there's just a lot going on in life and sometimes life is very hard to manage and I was like beating myself up for also not enjoying my birthday because I'm like, it's my damn birthday, like why am I not happy? But I think too like there's a pressure to kind of like do something like extravagant, which I would have loved to do, but like also I don't think we're in the place to do that. And so the other thing I really wanted was just to like relax, like I feel like we spend so much time just going. So like me and Caesar just, we got ice cream because it wasn't even ice cream. It was
Italian ice, technically.
Italian ice, one of my favorite places. And then we came back home and I was just like, I just need to lay here for a little bit, and I was trying to like think about like what like is bothering me or like just like what's on my mind. And I think, I just pictured my life being a little different by now, and like I guess I set these expectations in my mind of where I'd be. And sometimes that you don't meet those expectations or like you have preconceived notions of like what 25 should look like, and I think we don't give ourselves the okay that like 25 may look different for all different types of people. And also we're living in really different times. Like I was having a conversation with my dad the other day and he was like, well, I had this by this age. And I was just like, yeah, well, when you were this age, things were a lot different. And so I think I don't really give myself enough grace to be like, it's okay to not be exactly where you want to be right now. You don't have to get there. Like, just because you're not there now doesn't mean you won't get there eventually, kind of thing.
Yeah, like kind of like having a little more patience, I guess, right?
I mean, patience is, that is something I've consistently worked on because I have a bad habit of just wanting to get to places fast, like in my life, of wanting to move fast. And sometimes life doesn't happen that way, like there's things that need to fall into place and I'm trying to do better about like understanding that. But I think at the end sometimes I do put the blame on myself because I'm like, do I just need to be more patient or is like there's something I'm doing wrong that's preventing me from getting there in the first place?
Yeah.
Because like it could be like you just need to wait, it's coming. But it also could be maybe there is something that I'm not doing or accounting for, Yeah,
I mean, I just feel like it's funny because this whole topic, it's something that I actually thought of in regards, just in the back of my own mind, is like, like we tend to like analyze our lives consistently, and some like even on a monthly basis. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I can also see how it can be, it can cause like anxiety or it can cause you to be stressed out because you feel like you maybe or may not have accomplished what you needed to be to like have, because you set this like, this super high expectation, and whatnot. So I don't think there's a bad thing about not accomplishing at the age that you said. I want to, do X, Y, Z at a certain
Yeah.
age, or have X, Y, Z. Some people put like like physical things, like have a house by this or whatever the case is. But everyone's life's different, like there's different, everyone gets put in different situations. We all have our setbacks, and then we all have our moments where we like thrive and live like really good lives. And I think that's where most people tend to not really look at it. It's like there's going to be, on the other side of these issues and problems that we're having in our life, it's going to be greener on that side.
Yeah.
The grass is always greener on the other side type of moment. So it's like just getting over all of that and getting through it.
I think that's the hardest part, though, is like when you're going through situations like that, you don't often see what the other side can look like. And you also probably feel very impatient and like waiting for something good to happen when it feels like you've been dealing with a series of just impossible to get through things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but I do agree, like there's definitely more coming, and I've been trying to think about the future and how the best is yet to come. This isn't like end all be all, that this is the way my life has to be. There are changes that I can make. I think that I also just get overwhelmed sometimes because I don't think I set unrealistic standards for myself. I think I do set realistic standards for myself, but I also have like a hard time relaxing, like listening to what I need sometimes. And I've been trying to be better about it because I know that in order to be the best version of me and to like even produce at the best like
level.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I need to be like awake and there. And I mean, I tell you all the time, I'm so tired. Like, and I don't know the last time like I felt like awake. Like, and that sounds so bad, but I've just dealt like, I don't know what causes like my fatigue, but me and Caesar like were just like laying down for like 2 hours. And granted, we didn't sleep, but I woke up this morning and then we went to lunch and I was like, I could probably sleep for another 10 hours. And I'm like, this is not normal. And I get so like when you have that feeling of exhaustion, and then you're also stressed about like life and trying to make things work, and like the pressures of just, being an adult, like in this economic climate with inflation rising, there's no eggs in the store, like all of these things happening, graduating in a pandemic, there's so many things going on through your mind that you're just like, oh my gosh, please shut up. Like I just need to like relax. And I feel like sometimes I'm physically incapable of it, because even if I sit down, I'm like, shit, I can't stop thinking about this one task that's bothering me,
Yeah.
like, or even like, I don't know. I mean, how do you deal with like, I would say more like, I guess, societal pressures, because I think people paint an image of like where you should be at certain ages in your life. Like, how do you deal with those kind of pressures, or even pressures? I don't know if you've ever been like pressured from like your parents or like their expectations of you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if you have parents, you'll have heard that, like, yo, you should, by the time I was 18, I was married and had kids and all that. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think I've known plenty of people who got married in high school or after high school, still are married, have, 3-4 kids or whatever the case is, and they're happy. They have their career ahead of them and whatever the case is. But then there's some people like ourselves, like myself in this case, who hasn't got to that level yet, and I definitely want kids in the future. We both do.
Yeah.
But there is that societal pressure, obviously, from your family. Then there's also, I wouldn't say like society has a standard. There's no standards of when you should have kids or whatever the case is. I feel like even more nowadays, it's just more of like people just are trying to I guess like not only survive and thrive, but also some would say that society nowadays is telling you not to have kids because of fill in the blank XYZ.
Well, I think that we're way more aware of like, for instance, I don't know like if this is even true, but the way my mind works is like, for instance, a lot more women now work, and like the idea of like women, I feel like women have it hard, like, especially when it comes to like work, for instance, because like you may also want to have a kid, but like for your career, sometimes I think people see it as like a negative. Like
Oh
how
yeah,
is
I
it going
understand what
to
you're talking
impact
about.
your career?
Yeah,
And like not just like the mother herself might not see it, but like your
the
like
employer. Yeah,
employer, or like there's all these things like that comes with it. And also, like, I think about it, like, bringing a kid into this world right now, like, do you have everything to provide for
yeah,
the kid? Do you have, like, you know, I think it is a lot of people are just trying to survive themselves. So, like, I don't think it's not even that people don't want it. I think it's, like, how do, like, right now, a lot of people are just focused on survival.
yeah. I know, and that's what I'm saying is that it kind of fluctuates. I'd say, but I know when I was growing up, in middle school, high school, like, I was at least taught at high school certain things, and I was like, well, is that really accurate, or whatever the case is. But now, now we're kind of have, we can make obviously our own decisions and stuff like that. But yeah, you're not wrong to say, like, obviously we do have set certain standards in our own lives, or other people have even set certain standards in our own lives, and tend to like tell us things like, oh, you should have done this by now, or whatever the case is. And it is disappointing in ourselves. Like I said, I was telling you about this the other day. Like, just it kind of you kind of end up being down on yourself. You kind of beat yourself
Yeah.
up because you're like, dang, I should have done X, Y, or Z by now, or maybe I shouldn't have done this, or whatever that was, like 5 or 6 years ago. I could have, been in a different space or place or whatever. But is maybe the whole point of you and learning all that was the learning experience. So now But then
Yeah.
again, yeah, it's just all different. Everyone's different. Everyone has different backgrounds and situations, and we all learn differently. We all should hopefully like look at different points of view and understand like where we have to, where the truth lies and where our lives need to be. Because I think that's a really big that makes the biggest difference in your life, is realizing like, all right, where do I need to be, and what is like, you know, society telling me,
I think it's
or the
hard
current
though.
culture telling me,
I think it's hard though with like certain things being louder like than others. Like when
Yeah.
society is telling you, or even if you have people in your life that are telling you like you should have done this, or like you should do this, it's much easier for someone to judge your life from the outside and say this is the next step you should take. But there might be some context that they're missing. But like I remember for the longest time, and this is like no shade to my parents. Like I love my parents, but they definitely had very specific like things I think they wanted for our lives. And I mean no parent wants to see their kids struggle. And I remember like having conversations with my dad when it came to me getting in college, like what should I study? And all of these things, and that was like ingrained in my mind for so long that I thought I had to do what my parents wanted me to do. And I was almost scared when I was like telling them like what I actually decided on, because I was like I don't think they're going to agree with it because they can't see it the way that I'm seeing it, and like the future I'm seeing and how this will really work out for me. And so I think especially if it's someone close to you, it makes it harder to like really feel like you're doing the right thing if you don't have like a support system. I'm not saying I don't have like support between my parents, because I do. They definitely see like my path now, but I think sometimes it's hard to feel like you're going in the right direction when everyone has an opinion on what direction you should be going in and where your life should be. And granted, like what other people have to say about your life doesn't really matter, but it still affects you at the end of the day. I
Yeah,
feel
no, it
like it
definitely does.
still hurts you. And then at the same time, if like you have friends who like you see on social media and like that are at these great points in your life, and you're like, what did I do wrong to not be in the same spot? I think that's where we start to feel low too, is like when we start to compare ourselves to other people and we're like, shit, like what did I do wrong? Because like I mentioned, I probably mentioned in other podcasts, like I have friends who like studied similar fields in college, got similar bachelor's degrees that are just in complete different spots. So it makes you think like, okay, like you analyze your path and you're like, is this the right one? And if even if it is, you still kind of have that little doubt. I think there are just moments in your life that you're just doubting if you made the right decisions. And granted, you can't go back on those decisions, most of them at least. You've got to continue to figure out how, if it was the wrong decision, how do you pivot now? What's the next best step? And I think it's just hard. I think especially in your 20s, like everyone's telling you, I've heard this time and time again, and I know that it's true. I know there's truth to it. So I'm not going to say that like it's not true. But people are like, you have so much time, Sonny. You've got so much time. You're so young. And I'm just like, I understand that. But technically for me, I've only got 4 more years to be on Forbes 30 Under 30. So how much time is there really? I think there's a healthy ambition to have to like reach for their stars. And like I've mentioned, we're definitely dreamers. But when people tell me like there's so much time, it's like, well, I don't want to achieve this when I'm 40. I want to achieve this like soon. So like, what do I gotta do? So that's kind of like my mindset towards it too. Like I also saw something like this kind of relates in a way. I'm someone who, especially in my 20s, have had years. Like I'd say the past 5 years from 20 to now. I don't know how this year is going to go. Let's hope it's a high. I've had really like high highs, but very, very low lows. Like I felt like my 21st year, like the year being 21 was like one of the best. And so was 22. Like 22 was pretty good. And then from there went like down. Like I did, not to say like nothing great happened during those years, but like definitely shot down, and now I'm hoping that it goes a little bit back up. But I saw a video the other day about this guy who was also talking about having these extremely high highs and these extremely low lows, and he just wished it was like, chill, like just leveled. And the guy was like, well, if that was your heart, if you're measuring your heart and it goes flat, like you'd be dead. Like if you think of it as a heartbeat, like a flat line is death.
Yeah.
So like there's a purpose, kind of like saying there's a purpose between our high highs and our low lows, and that it's not as bad when you kind of see it that way. But I kind of experienced that, like where it doesn't feel like there's a middle ground sometimes. It's either like really, really good or things are really, really bad. And I do think that there is an in-between at some point, but sometimes you just go through longer periods that are just, I don't even know how to describe them. They're great for growth. I will say that.
Yeah.
I think the like lows have helped me figure out like me a little bit more, and like be past some of those lows made me realize I really am stronger than I think I am.
Yeah, I would say, would you describe those points in time when you're saying it's like low, it's like dry, and dry, and like imagine like you being in a desert and you have no water.
I don't think it's dry. Like I think, for instance, like
there's no like the growth opportunity. You can't plant. I guess you know what? That's a lie. You can plant.
You can plant a lot of things
in the desert. What I'm saying is there's an opportunity.
I think that there's even in my lowest lows, there's opportunity. I think though, when you're getting a headspace where you're in like a very low point in your life, you don't know how to move on to that opportunity. You don't know how to see the opportunity. I think that's where I get, is like when I've had these low lows, I feel directionless. I'm like, I don't know where the next opportunity is. I don't know that it's going to get better, because you can't see what's in front of you. Like it could be right here in front of you and you
don't see it.
You just don't see it because you're not in the space to understand the good that's going to come from this low period, because you don't think anything's going to come from it. You're just sad. You're just depressed and you don't know how to move forward. And I've been trying to like better understand my emotions more recently too, of like when I do feel like I get in a low spiral, like why am I feeling this way? And to get myself out of the mindset that this is a forever feeling, because it's not. But what is this trying to tell me, and like what is this going to do, and how am I going to learn from this? And those are hard things to like be thinking to yourself, because at the end of the day, when you're sad, sometimes you just want to be sad. Like sometimes you just want to cry. You just want to get it out. You just want to let it out, and you don't have time to analyze why you're feeling the way you are, or what's going to get better, or how it's going to get better. You just want to sulk. And I don't think that I think sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you just need to cry, but other times you need to look at it and be like, okay, what can I do? What can I do now? Obviously, this isn't a forever feeling, but like if I can also play a part in making myself feel better, like quicker, like what do I need to do for myself? And I think a lot of it too is like letting someone know how like you're feeling. I mean, you pretty much my person, so I know I'll tell you like, you know, I'm feeling this way and I don't really understand, but this is what I'm feeling. And I think sometimes even saying it out loud gets you to better understand like the things going on in your head.
Yeah, it helps you realize like what direction you need to go into. I think most importantly, it's at least at the bare minimum understanding that, and that's what's important, is understanding that like, okay, you know, you're in this low point, right? And you're like, you have some sense of direction because you know you have to go up. There's only way,
Yeah.
there's only going up from here, right?
Yeah. I mean, that is the good part of being low. It's like you really can go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's definitely going to be one of those moments, and I know I've been through these moments in my own life too. It's just like, all right, what do I need to do? Maybe I need to ask for help. Maybe I need to reach out to somebody, a mentor, or the person, a friend, or whatever it is, to like find out what's going on. You know, like, are my not to say like my feelings aren't valid. It's just more of like what I'm thinking. Is it valid in the sense of should I not should I be feeling this way, but more of like, how do I get up from here?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what's the most difficult part is for most people, is asking for help.
I like that you said that though, because Caesar and I watched this thing the other day. I watched it first and then I was like, I'm going to watch it again with Caesar, and it's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It's something in that order. I don't know if I got the exact order, but it's originally a book, and I haven't read the book. I really need to order the book, actually. It's a children's book, though. But they made a little animation on Apple TV. So if you're watching this, you should watch it because it is deep, deep cut. Oh, gosh. And it says that the boy asked the fox, what was the bravest thing you ever said? And he goes, help. It's like asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's the opposite. It's a sign of strength. And I think that's something that is so not like taught in our society, that asking for help is not as bad as we make it seem. I think there have been situations in our lives though that have shaped us to make us feel that like to ask for help will make you look dumb, feel inferior, and all these kind of things. But I think it really is true, because at the end of the day, I don't think we were meant to do life alone. And I don't mean like you have to have like a person, like a relationship. I think we were meant to have friendships and connections, and to ask for help when you need it isn't like being a burden on others. But I know I felt like I don't want to burden someone else with my problems or with the stuff I'm dealing with. And I think that's why a lot of people don't, is because you always feel like you're a burden to someone else.
Yeah, man.
You've literally said this to me though too, because I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Or like, why didn't you ask me? You're like, well, I just didn't want to. I'm like, no, like, don't do that. And I get it at the same time. I get it because I'm the same way, because I think we also have this like complex that I need to do it by myself. I need to do this by myself. Like, that's the only way this is going to feel good, is I do it by myself. So I think there's also a part of us that wants to be like independent, and independent people don't ask for help is, I guess, the narrative out there. But like, no, like, asking for help is a really like brave thing, and it shows that like you know when you don't know, like, and you know when you need to ask for help. And it's so important. Like, I remember when I was in high school, I still do this sometimes. I'm trying to do it less because, you know, have confidence in myself. Was before I'd ask a question in high school in any of my classes, I'd raise my hand. I'd be like, this may be a stupid question, but here's my question. Just so they knew, like, if it was a stupid question, I had to address the fact that it might be a stupid question, you know, to make myself feel better. Like, no one would be like, oh, that was a stupid question. It's like, well, I already knew that because I said it. So, like, but, like, so sometimes now, and also just be like, make it seem like, oh, maybe I missed something. Maybe I didn't hear, but, I used to do that, which I'm trying not to do that anymore, because again, like, I don't think there are stupid questions, but
I don't think they're stupid questions. I think even if you heard the answer to that question, I know we've all been in that situation in class, in school, where the teacher literally just told you that specific answer, and then you're like, you raise your hand, and then you ask the question, you're like, did you just answer that? And everyone's looking at you in class like,
she just said it, man.
She just said the answer to that.
It's funny though because Caesar, you're notorious for asking the same question over and over again. So like if I told Caesar right now, like, hey, tomorrow we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, he'd wake up and be like, hey Sonny, today we doing X, Y, and Z, or like, where are we going today? Like, just to clarify, it's not even because he doesn't know what I said. It's to clarify. But to me, it used to make me mad. I mean, sometimes still makes me mad. I'm not gonna lie. Because I thought he wasn't listening. I'm like, I literally told you. I was like, are you not listening? And he'd be like, no, you said this. And he'll repeat like what I told him the other day. But he was like, but I just wanted to make sure. And I was like, okay, like what? So
I just ask it just to double check, you know?
Yeah. We triple check sometimes.
Things change, you know? Like you might be like, you might feel like, for example, like this morning, we're supposed to do the podcast. Things changed. So it's good to know. But yeah, it's just letting you know. It's just like one of those things. I like to double and triple check whenever it comes to like, hey, are you sure? Like this is going right? It's just more of like making sure things are, I guess, going according to plan in that scenario. So yeah.
I do have a question for you though. Being that you're close to like the end of your 20s, what advice would you have for someone like me, or like in your mid 20s or even late 20s, or just in your 20s in general? Like, let's not even like just in your 20s.
Like, what would be a good question like this would be to ask would be, what would you ask yourself? What would you tell yourself in like if you're 20? You know?
If I was 20?
No, what would I tell my 20-year-old self?
Oh yeah, what would you tell like your 20-year-old self?
Man.
Caesar changed my question. Didn't like the one that
no,
I
it's just
like better questions than he asked me this.
No, it's just more of like, for sure, like you only currently right now know what you know. So go out there and learn more. I would tell myself that. I would be like, don't be so like thinking you know everything, because there's a lot more out there to learn and understand, and whether it's someone's different perspective in life or other information, you can, there's so much information to learn out there, and that way you can actually grasp and formulate some sort of value that you can bring to the world, whether it's through, at the time when I was 20, I was trying to do like a bunch of things all at once. Like I was trying to do everything.
Well, I think the thing is, why people do that though too is because you still are trying to figure out your life.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people tell you to do that exact thing, is to try out things, to test and tune, because your 20s are the perfect time for that. But at the same time, it feels like so contradicting, because it's also the best time to start building your career. Like if you want to have like a certain career path, like your 20s would be the best time to do that versus starting in your 30s. Like to me, like the sooner you get there, the better. Like that's how I've always seen it. So the idea of like, just trying all these other things in my 20s, like felt so like contradicting to like building a career out, which I think the two can coexist in some manner, but it gets exhausting. I mean, I'd say that I also have a bunch of interests too that we try to do obviously on the side. Like we obviously do this podcast. I'm doing some more reading. I'm learning a lot of other things on the side. I'm trying to write a book, and at times that can get overwhelming, and so you have to really plan out like being intentional with the stuff you're doing. I think that no one teaches that intention in your 20s, because I think that you can try out a bunch of things but in a very intentional way. And I don't think that that's what's like out there. So I think that that's good advice, because I think a lot of people go like this route where they don't know what they're doing. And I also don't think you can know sometimes. I knew people that I went to high school with that knew what they were going to do after college since high school. And I always thought like, how the heck do I not know what I want? Like, how do I not know? Because I was like overwhelmed by the opportunities that there were. Like there's so many different things you can study in college, and now like we live in a world where new careers that didn't exist before are popping up every single freaking day. And so it's like it's almost it's almost overwhelming the options we have. And Caesar and I were just talking about this because we went to it's like the frozen, what was it? Not frozen yogurt. It's
The
Italian ice place.
yeah.
And
CJ's.
Caesar Caesar was like, there's so many options that I don't know what to get. And it's like that's how I felt going into college and even coming out. It's like, well, where do I go from here?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, we all have certain things we liked when we were younger. And I'm telling you right now, like, there's still certain things that I liked and I thought, like, would be a career for me. But for some, it was a career. For me, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, I still, to this day, like, I remember we were talking about, like, things that, like, would be really cool to have, you know? Like, obviously, like, in the future to have, like, a house, obviously. But then, like, to have, like, for me, I loved automotive technology and still do to this day. And it would be awesome to have, like, a little car that I work on or whatever the case is. Because it's something that, like, brought joy to me in my life, you know? And I feel like it can bring joy to others, too, as well. Like, people that are in my life.
One day it'll bring you joy. So.
No, or that, or maybe it's, like, the kids we have or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, they'll bring joy for them to learn certain things. And because I appreciated that growing up. And, yeah, like, those certain things that you learn, you know? Like, all right, I can see myself doing this. But then I realized, like, man, I actually don't, because I feel like me working at this all the time is going to bring me less joy when I appreciate it. So
yeah, I think there's
like,
a balance sometimes where, like, sometimes people pursuing, like, a certain passion isn't meant for them because you have to have it so much on your terms. And when you do, like, something for work that you love, you want to make sure you don't get tired of it. Yeah,
it's like, which makes me wonder about, like, what I do currently right now, which is funny. And it's like kind of I'm having an epiphany moment right now, but it's just like I love doing, like, content creation, and I love doing it for other people, like whether it's this podcast and stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't want it to turn into something like that, where it's like you don't then have you then don't have a passion to do your own thing because you're too busy doing it for someone else.
Yeah. Well, it's just always got to be for you, and I think the second that it's not for you, like, I mean, I think it can be for you and for others at the same time, but if it starts to only be for others, it's not something that's when you step away. Yeah, I think that it's hard to figure out, like, if you're even headed in the right direction in your 20s, and, like, there's that fear, I think, on everyone's mind. I know it's on my mind, is like, what if I get to 30 or 35 and I've pursued this one thing and I'm like, shit, do I want to continue doing this? Like, it feels like the later, like, you get in life, the less time there is to change things, which isn't necessarily the case. Like, I think you can make change at any point in your life, even if it's in your career. Like, people do it all the time. It may not be as easy as well, but it's possible. So I think that there's just that pressure of, like, wow, it's a great time to figure out your life. So many of the choices that you make right now will affect you for the rest of your life. Like, for instance, went to college, acquired the student debt. That's a choice I literally have to live with probably forever. A debt I probably have to live with forever. Maybe not. Like, I'm manifesting that I pay off my debt. Yeah, it's just, there's so many choices that we make right now that will have an impact on our future, but we're not in the mind to understand that impact sometimes. Like, I think decisions we make sometimes, we don't think about that, like, trickle down effect of, like, how it's going to trickle down on through the years.
How it's going to affect you throughout the rest of time, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like decisions that you make or the career choice you make, you know, or whatever the case is. Because, I mean, I imagine you ask yourself, or have you asked yourself, like, this question is, where you see yourself now, or, you know, your career path as it's growing and you're becoming smarter and smarter every day, like, with everything you're doing and learning, like, would you tell your 20-year-old self, like, this is what you're going to go through if you go this route, knowing what you know now? Like, hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight 2020.
You know, like, what would you tell yourself? Like, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? Or 18, fresh out of high school year old self?
See, I think that's such an interesting question because I don't know. Like, I don't know that I would want, like, I feel like the stuff that I've been through, while sometimes shitty, like, has been very, like, helpful in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I do like where my life is headed currently. And while getting there wasn't super easy, I think it was necessary. Like, goes back to, like, how, you know, you don't want to change something in the past because you don't want to alter the future. I think of, like, what advice am I going to give to my past self that's going to make any of the shit that you go through better? Like, you know, because even when you're in it, like, even when you're in, like, deep, dark shit sometimes, some people will tell you like, it won't be like this forever, but you can't understand that at the time. So even if I went back and told my little 18-year-old Sonny that like, oh man, like the best is yet to come, what's the likelihood that 18-year-old Sonny's believe in it,
Yeah.
like, it can see.
Or understand
The whole
it.
point is
Yeah.
like, you can't see what's in front of you all the time. And so I don't think that there's a lot I could say to change things, but I wouldn't want to change things either, because I think that there was purpose behind them. At least I'd like to think that there was some type of purpose behind the pain. Otherwise, it's just cruel. It's just very cruel.
No, I think
it happened that way.
I know it's funny because I remember bringing that up to you. I know I really do think that there is a purpose in every situation we get put in, and the outcome of that situation. It's like, they tell you look at the bright side. And I know sometimes it can sound like, I think to you, like not condescending. I don't know if that's the right word, but like not like, hey, look at the bright side. You broke your arm, but hey, look at the bright side. Like you didn't smash your face, you broke your arm. Like if you got in a car accident, right? Your face is okay, but your hand's broken. But I think it is painful, and you're going to go through that pain, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I guess, I did learn this lesson, and now I know what to do, what not to do, or what to do in the next time,
I think it's interesting that you bring up, like, look at the bright side, because people struggle, like, when, for instance, I were to say, man, this freaking sucks. The person, like, I'm talking to might be like, well, they try to come up with, like, what that bright side is.
Yeah.
Like, what's the good thing about this situation? When sometimes a comforting thing isn't knowing, like, what good is coming out of this. It's, I feel you. Like, yeah, it really does suck. Just to understand and empathize with that person and, like, say, like, yeah, it sucks. Because I feel like when we tell people, like, well, at least this, it's not helping the situation. Like, that person oftentimes isn't in the mindset to realize that there is a bright side to the situation, or like to flip the like other side of the coin, to see the good side of it, see the good side of a bad situation. But I think there is a lot that can be said that can be like, man, like that really sucks. Like it's like that episode of Parks and Rec where Anne's pregnant and like Chris Traeger is just he's being really great. Like he's being a great, like, I don't know if they're married at this point, like husband, but like she's like complaining and he just has like the answers to all of her complaints. And she's like, I just don't want answers. Like, I just want you to like agree that it sucks. And that's all she wants to hear is like, it sucks. And he gives that to her because like he didn't realize that what he was doing was trying to find all the answers when she just needed someone to like meet her where she was at, And I think that's something that we also don't do is like we try to get people to see from our perspective, like we're on the outside of like, well, look at this, when like sometimes in that moment maybe that's not the right direction to go towards. Like I think you can do both, maybe be like, it does suck, it really does, like I really do feel you, but I'm here, and think of it like this, like try to do like the best of both worlds kind of thing. But yeah, I think that people just try to fix the situation where sometimes we just need to feel a little sad.
Yeah, no, it's good to empathize with your feelings and others, obviously too. Yeah. But
I think empathy is just something that not a lot of people have.
It's hard.
It's
I can tell you that right now.
hard to empathize with other people and to see where other people are coming from.
In my opinion, sometimes it's impossible because, I mean, you really truly won't feel every single thing someone tells you because there's no way you've probably been in every single situation that someone's explained to you, right? So as humans,
but I don't think you have to. Like, I think the thing is, like, I've been in like situations where someone's like describing something to me and I can feel the pain in their voice. In my like, I get like this heart-wrenching feeling. Like I feel like I could cry, because of it. And I may have never experienced what they're talking about, but like I can see the pain that it's causing them, and you can like, the feeling of pain, like, so like, I think that not all the times you have to have tried, like, have been in a situation to empathize with someone, Yeah. I just also don't think people try to sometimes. I think
it's easier not to.
Yeah. It's easier to just like move on.
It's easier to disregard it. And especially in like professional settings, it's easier to just move on, like just, quote unquote, just move on. Like, but the harder thing to do that I think can be more valuable in the long run is to like understand, like what's actually going on. I think that's what's not like not as known, I guess. Maybe it is known, but not as known, at least in my opinion, to most people that are maybe listening to this podcast.
I think like yeah, I think when and you put in perspective like the workplace, there are like I don't know if it's taboo, but it's like there's things that you don't talk about, you know?
Yeah.
And like and I understand it, but I also like I think that it's so important that we acknowledge that the things that people go through, you know, and that like life isn't all like sunshine and rainbows for people sometimes, and like people are struggling, and like I was gonna write this post on LinkedIn and I didn't end up like posting it, but you know, it was about like, you know, I'm turning 25 and I'm thankful for this year because I honestly didn't think that I should be here like in this moment, because like there were so many things that could have stopped me from being here, and like so many moments where I felt like I didn't belong here, and like that life felt like too much and I didn't have purpose and all this kind of stuff. But I didn't want to post it because I didn't want people to have this like notion, like preconceived notion of who I was off this post, because like I think people see me as like a very happy, like sunny disposition type person, but like inside I really do struggle a lot. Like I've battled like anxiety and depression for quite some time now, and it is hard. And like to me, like the reason that I get so proud of myself sometimes is because I'm doing things that like the person that was in that deep dark place didn't think I could do. You know, like didn't think that I could accomplish. And like an employer would never know that. You know, an employer would never know that like I show up to work every day, but I'm like have these own demons that I'm battling, and we just don't talk about it. And I think like there's reasons that we don't talk about it, but I also think it's like I think some people deserve awards for being able to do it. Like some days it's so hard to like really show up and bring your full self when you do feel like that, when you are struggling with all these other things, and you've kind of just gotta like put up this shield like of like, okay, like we've got to deal with this stuff later, we've got to work now, and like having to essentially try to forget everything that's going on in your personal life and just focus on the work. And you know, I've done that for years where I've just like
You left out. I remember I've heard, I don't know what the exact saying is, but it was like leaving your like problems at the door, I guess, or something
yeah,
like that.
like leave it.
Like,
I hate that saying. Because I think it's so much easier said than done. Like that was a thing in like retail, like leave your problems at the door, leave anything. And it's like, how do you leave something that's inside you? You know, that's something that is like you're carrying with you every day.
It's like a weight.
Yeah, and I think as we start to understand like mental health more, you realize how kind of hard that is to do. And yeah, but I feel like whenever I was asked recently about like our podcast, and I was so happy that someone asked about it because no one ever does. And they were like, how did you choose like your topic, you know, growth? And I was like, well, growth encompasses so many things. And, you know, you can talk about professional growth, personal growth, or growing online through social media. And it just opened a bunch of avenues to where we could also talk about like mental health. And I was like, that's super important to me because I feel like we don't talk enough about it. Like, I just think it's so important to talk about these things because I don't think we do. And I think especially in the workplace because, you know, people are like the backbone of companies for the most part. Like, unless you're running a fully like
autonomous
company. But they are, and like being that we're people, we have our own problems, and like it is really hard to think to like separate ourselves from a part of our lives essentially. Like our problems are a part of our lives, or like for instance, if you have like I imagine, like, for instance, if I had kids and my child was sick at home and I had to go to work, like, I'd be worried sick all day about them. And, like, how do you separate that word? You can't. Like, you can't, you have thoughts, you care about another person, so therefore, like, you can't just, like, toss that at the door. So I just think that that's, I get the intention behind it, like, okay, well, yeah, bring your best version of you to somewhere, but also give people some grace when they can't present the best versions of themselves, when they're struggling, and give them that open ear. And sometimes it's all someone needs is to know that, like, they are more than just this, that they mean more to you, you know, like, that they're important. I think at the end of the day, like, that they're important, that you care about even the person that they are.
Yeah.
Which I think is also difficult. I think it's difficult though when you're in your 20s too and you're trying to find this balance. And the world right now is very different than it was even when I graduated college. Like, it's so different. And I think when you're, for instance, like we've got a bunch of generations in the workforce. And I think everyone has a different idea of what work should look like.
I mean, I feel like going back on, definitely after you graduated, even before that, I feel like some would even say that we went through like some kind of, this is an alternate reality.
No, yeah.
Like, it's just like some kind of like wormhole opened up in 2020 or end of 2019, 2020. And like, because things just drastically like shifted in such a weird, chaotic way where like, just everything's different in a certain extent.
It's funny too, because my dad will even say that, because I work from home, and I'll text my dad and he's just like, I could never do that. Like, he's like, I couldn't pay attention. I couldn't, like, and I was like, it just requires like a discipline. I was like, but I'd 100% choose it over driving to work every day. I was like, I get out of bed and I just get to work. Like, I don't have to put on like professional clothes or anything. I just gotta like, and granted, it's hard work. I think the other misconception too with people like who like don't like this remote thing is like, oh, you're not productive, man. I don't know the last day I've had a bit like not a seamless day. I don't know the last time like I wasn't busy. Like, work is always busy. It doesn't mean that there's less work or people aren't working as efficiently. Like, man, I work all the time.
I was literally gonna say there's so much that that's why, I mean, I don't want to give the whole world my idea, but that's why I want to make a movie or a show about that specific lifestyle, not lifestyle, but
it's just different
work.
But I think it's true. I also heard someone say that this was said to me, and I thought that this was so interesting too, is that like I think we have this concept of work that like it has to be this like you go to a place and you do 40 hours, 50 hours, and that's what work should be. But like there's like companies who are less focused on like the actual aspect of how the work gets done. They're just more concerned about if the work gets done.
Or the results,
so like why do you care how the work gets done if it's getting done? You know, like in what time it's getting, like if they're meeting deadlines and stuff. And I'm like, but like when you say that in like to like an older workforce of people who are used to like this whole office thing, they're just like, what? You mean like people don't work between 9 to 5? How do they even work? Like, it's like freelancers have been doing this for years. Like, they work on their own schedule and it works for people. So it's like, it only makes sense that we bring it to the modern workforce, which is not what this podcast is about, but like, it makes sense. Like, when you think about how like people have literally operated individually like this for years, means that it does make sense to bring this to like a more full scale of like, this is what the workforce looks now.
Oh no, definitely. There's been, before 2020, like people were like you said, freelancing, or they had freelance businesses where they had like a agency, and they would hire different freelancers to do a certain type of work, project, whatever, whether it's video production, fill in the blank, design. Like there was all kinds of different companies that like became, then probably ended up moving. Actually, it's funny you bring that up though. Then probably ended up getting some kind of, physical location because they needed like, actual people.
I mean, there will always be businesses that need physical locations, I think. But like in this world of like, there's so many businesses that can operate without like a location and can be fully remote. And I think like more people are getting like accustomed to it. But it's like this, the workforce is now so different. And like my dad, when he's like, yeah, I could never work from home, I'm like, honestly, this is like the best scenario. I don't think I could ever work from an office now that I've done this, because it also like instills incredible, like I mean, I feel like I've had good work ethic before, but like you do have to be on top of your stuff. And I'm grateful too, like that, like I know some people have to like clock in and out, but like my time is managed by me, and that's important to me. And I don't feel micromanaged like you do typically when you're in an office. Yeah, things are just so different. And so like when you're in your 20s and you're trying to figure it all out, and like I don't know, there's so many things you couldn't plan for. You couldn't plan for the economy being the way it is now, housing being as expensive as it is. Like, if I would have known, like I guess some of the things that I would have said to myself is save as much money as you freaking can, Sonny, because you won't have any in 2023. It's different, which I just think that piece of advice to everyone out there and to myself is just to give yourself grace and time. And it's as like uncomfortable it can be to like not have things figured out, I think you're exactly where you need to be right now.
Yeah.
And you're on your way to something great. And that's what I keep on reminding myself, is that like I'm on the way to something great, and just continue to keep moving forward. Keep on swimming.
You got to keep on swimming, keep on moving forward, like Rocky would say. And I forget what movie it was, but he was talking to us.
Was it not in Rocky?
No, well, it was in it was in like one of the last films that
aren't they all called like Rocky
Sylvester
1, 2,
Stallone
3, 4?
was in, where he actually directed the film. Besides the Creed, but no, he was talking to his like son in the movie, obviously, and he was telling him like, you gotta just keep moving forward.
Is that the skit that Andy tries to do, to Michael?
No,
in the office?
no,
That's
a different one. No, this was in the. It was like a more recent Rocky film, but
I've never seen any of them.
It's a really good scene. Definitely emotional when you watch it. You're like, wow.
Brought to you by today's emotions of being 25, and we're thriving. I cried today, but it's okay because we're going to make it through the year. It was going to be a great year. I'm very excited. Despite like having like a semi-sad like birthday, I still enjoyed it. I did what I needed to do, and I'm excited for what this next year will bring, and for all this, like for just more podcast episodes. I think that this is going to just get better and better. So anyone who's listening on Spotify, Apple, or any podcast platform, or YouTube, please leave a review if you love our episodes, or even if you hate it,
leave a comment review. Either way.
Yeah, good and bad. We accept all here.
Yes.
We need some feedback, because right now I don't think anyone said anything. So
we've had a few, but anyways, yeah.
Anyways, like at that note, they weren't good. Also, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe, because we're at like 102 right now, which is exciting, but we want to continue to grow and expand. Growing. So make sure you subscribe. We release episodes every single Monday, maybe more frequently if we can figure out a content schedule I'm currently working on. It also just takes a lot of labor, obviously, and effort for us to do this, because we work pretty often. We have our own like lives and full-time jobs. But this has been Growing Together with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
We hope you have a great week, and listen to the next episode.
See you guys later.